host, The Stephen A. Smith Show, starts right now.
Woods took the course at Augusta National, and there was hope, but how much of it was real and how much of it was false hope? It's the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, SiriusXM Channel 80, and on ESPN News, brought to you by Credit Karma. Get your truly free credit scores and free credit monitoring from Credit Karma today. Credit Karma. Get knowing. It's Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Smith today on his show. You can normally find me 3 to 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Following Stephen A., you can find me most days of the week hanging out with Stephen A., Max, and Molly on First Take, and on occasions when he takes a breather. And on occasions when he gets a little R&R and gets ready for the NBA playoffs, you can find me right here or sitting in his seat on First Take. There's a lot to talk about today. I got a couple names for you. I got a couple guys. I've got 2 names in the NBA that as the playoffs tip off this weekend, they and their performance can be the biggest swings, the biggest X factors, the biggest disruptors of our expectations in the NBA playoffs. 2 guys who, not necessarily am I saying are the best or the greatest players in the playoffs, and may not even be at times the best or the greatest players on their own team, but they are certainly going to be the guys who swing the outcomes, swing our expectations in these NBA playoffs. You got to hear these 2 names, and you can give me yours as well at 888-729-3776. That's 888-SAY-ESPN on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. But it's time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Best phones, best networks, no contracts. Tiger Woods, y'all. How much was hope? How much was false hope? Tiger Woods took to the course yesterday at the Masters and came out of the gates swinging. As I left you yesterday here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, he was near the top of the leaderboard. Tiger Woods shot 2 under yesterday. He finished the day tied for 11th. But early in the day, it looked like it's happening. It looked like Tiger Woods was making his comeback, the grand comeback. The one that many have hoped for, some have expected, and many are thinking, he can do this. I think that. He can do this. He can win another major, and as the day unfolded yesterday, the first half of the day told us, yes, he can. At portions in our day, he was tied atop the leaderboard at 3 under. He finished the day, as I said, 2 under, and that's looking pretty nice. That's sitting pretty for Tiger Woods, and that's what Michael Collins said. No pressure. This ain't going to do anything to Tiger. No pressure at all. Listen to ESPN's golf analyst, Michael Collins.
Pressure for him to win? I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any pressure on Tiger Woods to win the Masters other than whatever he self-inflicts on himself because he wants to win the Masters really bad. But I don't think that, people are looking at Tiger going, well, you're the favorite. It's your tournament to lose. That's not the way it works because of how many good players are playing really well right now. Remember, Tiger's not up there in the top 5 in the world ranking, so it's not like the Tiger of 2000 or 2007 or 2004 when he was the Tiger Woods. So I don't know if pressure to win would be the right term I would necessarily use for Tiger Woods, but I will say this. The closer he is to the top of that leaderboard as we go forward, the more pressure is going to become because the more people are going to go, he's doing it again.
Totally agree with Michael Collins. There's no pressure on Tiger Woods. That will only come with day 4. That will only come with the day where 2 majors were lost a year ago. Tiger Woods came out of the gates looking sharp, or at least that's the way it looked at the beginning of the day. And this was the false hope. This was the fool's gold. This was not to be believed. Because while through the first half of the day, Tiger was near the top of the leaderboard, and he shot what at the time looked like an impressive 2 under in his opening round at the Masters. As the day unfolded, we learned what a truly strong day in 2019 at Augusta looked like. As the day unfolded, all of the young guys that Michael Collins referenced got to take to the course. As the day unfolded, the afternoon proved that Tiger's opening round was false hope. Brooks Koepka finished the day at 6 under. Bryson DeChambeau finished the day at 6 under. Ian Poulter had a nice day as well. Dustin Johnson, others, including South Africa's Justin Harding, showed us that you could shoot 6, 5, 4 under on this course. Conditions right, timing is right, game is right, swing is right. That's what a winning round is going to look like. And if Tiger Woods is going to compete, if Tiger Woods is going to show us that he can actually win, not just contend for a major, it's going to take a better day than what we saw from him. It's going to take more than what through the first half of the day looked like a winning round of golf. We learned as the day went on what a winning round of golf looked like. So Tiger's opening day was false hope. But don't think I'm out here hating. Don't think I'm being pessimistic. Don't think I'm telling you Tiger's never going to win another major, because I'm a believer. I am a believer that Tiger Woods will win another major, and there was real hope. That's what I'm here to tell you. There was real hope to be found on the Masters golf course yesterday. There was real hope for Tiger Woods. And despite their history, despite their, and I'm using air quotes here, rivalry, despite their at times adversarial nature, their no love lost relationship, despite even the way it's mended and been spinned into money-making ventures, hope came for Tiger Woods in the form of Phil Mickelson. Phil Mickelson gave us hope that Tiger Woods can win another major. You see, yesterday I laid out for you that I believe Tiger can win another major. I believe he's arrived at the top group in golf. I'm not telling you he's the old Tiger. He's not the Tiger of vintage. He's not the one that laps the field, runs away, terrifies guys on Sundays. That's not what we're talking about anymore. And don't compare Tiger to himself. Compare him to the people he's playing against today. Compare him to who he was a year ago. Tiger contended in 2 majors last year. Tiger, yes, has a group of 10, maybe 12 guys. Justin Thomas, Justin Rose, Jordan Spieth, Ricky Fowler, Rory McIlroy, Brooks Koepka. I could go on and on. A group of top-tier golfers who are in contention in any given major. But you know who else's name is in that group now? Do you know who else belongs? Tiger Woods. But the best rebuttal to that, the best rebuttal to Tiger win another major is this. His timeline is not the same, Will. His timeline is shorter. All those guys, when you say, hey, will Justin Thomas win another major? Well, he's got more years to do it than Tiger. It's the best rebuttal to my argument. In walks Phil Mickelson. Phil Mickelson was 1 stroke off the lead yesterday. 48-year-old Phil Mickelson shot 5 under. 48-year-old Phil Mickelson was in the thick of it with those young guys. And what 48-year-old Phil Mickelson shows us is that Tiger Woods' window doesn't have to just be for the next year or two. Phil Mickelson is Tiger Woods' hope. If he's to win another major, it's going to take some time. If he's going to win another major, it can't be forced in to the next 24-month window. 43-year-old Tiger Woods can look across that golf course to the round that Phil Mickelson put up yesterday. And not a terrible start today through 8. He's 4 under. He can look across that golf course and see what Phil Mickelson is doing at 48 years old and say to himself, maybe I got 5 years. Maybe I got a bigger window. And if I can play the kind of golf I've been playing over the last year, over the next 5, you telling me you're going to keep your money off of Tiger? You telling me you're not going to keep him in that group? Over 5 years, if you tell me, yeah, I think Justin Thomas might win another major, I think you have to ask yourself that same question about Tiger Woods. Tiger Woods yesterday gave you false hope and real hope. Tiger Woods' round wasn't good enough to win Augusta National, the Masters, in 2019. But Phil Mickelson's was. And Phil Mickelson's age and his game give you hope that Tiger's window is a little bit longer, and he has yet an opportunity to win a major. I don't think it'll be this weekend at the Masters. I'm not telling you it won't be. I don't think it'll be this weekend. But I think it will come. And that's Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Nationwide coverage on America's largest and most dependable 4G LTE networks. Tiger tees off, by the way, in about 30 minutes. Right now, your leaderboard at Augusta National is Bryson DeChambeau. He is 7 under, followed by Francesco Molinari and Jason Day at 5 under. We'll keep you updated on the scores as we go through the day. Phil Mickelson is in that third place group, tied for fourth. Third in position, tied for fourth among golfers there, along with Brooks Koepka and Ian Poulter. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Smith today on the Stephen A. Smith Show. I've got 2 names for you. I've got 2 names for you of guys who will swing the outcomes of the NBA playoffs. Let me talk to you for a minute about what I mean. What do we mean when we talk about X factors? What do we mean when we talk about wild swings? Obviously, Giannis Antetokounmpo is a force of nature. And I actually like that analogy very much, a force of nature. Giannis isn't going to be stopped. Giannis is going to carry those Milwaukee Bucks through the playoffs. Giannis, to me, is like gravity. Count on it. It's going to happen. It's not going to cause any wild swings. You're going to have to beat Giannis. He's going to perform. He's going to be awesome. And the Bucks, because of that, should achieve our expectations, which is Eastern Conference Finals, perhaps NBA Finals. Giannis isn't an X factor. He's not a swing component because we know what he'll do, and thus we know what the Bucks will do. I can say the same thing about Kawhi Leonard. Kawhi Leonard's going to perform, and he's going to carry those Raptors to the full extent of their potential. Kevin Durant's going to perform, and the Golden State Warriors will do the same. I think James Harden will perform, and the Rockets will fall short of some people's expectations, but for the vast majority, the rational among us, those who see the predictable nature of these NBA playoffs, that the Golden State Warriors will be standing when everybody else is falling down, we know how far James Harden will carry the Rockets. No. I've got 2 names for you that make it impossible or hardest to predict where these teams will go. First of all, one of the biggest X factors, one of the 2 biggest X factors in these NBA playoffs is the Boston Celtics' Kyrie Irving. Kyrie will swing the entire direction of the Boston Celtics playoffs hopes, the entire direction of the Boston Celtics future for that matter, the entire direction of how they're going to build this would-be dynasty, the entire direction of the next 5 years. Kyrie will be an X factor for all of that. Kyrie's performance and the way it serves as an engine for the Boston Celtics will be the biggest X factor in the Eastern Conference. Damon Jones, former NBA player, was on Get Up this morning, and he talked about exactly how far he thought these Celtics could go. Listen.
I see Boston getting to the Eastern Conference Finals, and I'm gonna be worried about the Marcus Smart being out the first 2 rounds.
Yeah.
But I look for Gordon Hayward and Jaylen Brown to step up their production, not only on the offensive end but defensively, because Marcus Smart, they miss a lot on the perimeter defensively. And Kyrie Irving is just a big game player when it comes to the playoffs. I'm not worried about what he's gonna give me, but I do see this team making it to the Eastern Conference Finals.
I don't see the Boston Celtics making it to the Eastern Conference Finals. Now, let me walk through a couple things. Marcus Smart's loss is going to be big. He's the heart and soul of that team. He's a defensive presence. He is their grit. He is their toughness. But I think Jaylen Brown is going to be a really, really good to great player in the NBA. He's had his ups and downs, but Jaylen can play defense. Jaylen can be gritty. Jaylen Brown can be tough. Jaylen Brown can fill in for Marcus Smart. Gordon Hayward's turning into Gordon Hayward of old. Through the month of March and into April, Gordon Hayward is looking like a guy who can make a real difference for the Celtics. And if Gordon Hayward is the Gordon Hayward of old, look out. Look out, Bucks. Because that's who they'd meet in the second round. Now, I don't think the Boston Celtics will make it to the Eastern Conference Finals because I don't think they'll get past Giannis, and I don't think they'll get past the Bucks. I don't think they'll get past the second round. But now let me acknowledge the X factor. I know who playoff Kyrie is. I know what closer Kyrie can do. But what I don't know is how the Boston Celtics will respond to that Kyrie. It's been a yo-yo all season long, and you know it. You and I both know it. The Celtics were a predictable thing. We all knew what they could do because they did it. They made it to the Game 7 of the Eastern Conference Finals against LeBron James. They did it on the backs of defense and sharing the ball and ball movement. And any given player stepping up at any given time, from Jaylen Brown to Jason Tatum to Al Horford. That's who they were a year ago. And then you insert Kyrie Irving. A guy who's more ball dominant. A guy who doesn't necessarily fit that style of play. And all season long, because of that, it's been a yo-yo. Does Kyrie take over? Yes. Do they win? Sometimes. Are they clicking on all cylinders? Sometimes. Are they looking like they have sand in the engine and salt in the gas tank? Sometimes. I think Kyrie will perform. When I say he's an X factor, I'm not talking about is he going to be bad or is he going to be good. What I mean is this. How will his team fit into his performance? This is a team that wasn't designed to be run this way. So when Kyrie is taking over, how does Jason Tatum respond? When Kyrie is taking over, how does Jaylen Brown respond? When Kyrie is doing playoff Kyrie, what's the chemistry look like in Boston? Because just because he turns into playoff Kyrie doesn't mean the Celtics sing. They have to respond to his style of play. He has to mesh with their style of play. It's got to be like a symphony, man, an orchestra. They're going to have to all play together. He can't break out into a jazz solo in the middle of the Met Opera. It isn't going to work. But if he can take that instrument, if he can take that virtuoso style of play and make it fit into the Celtics, that's an X factor. That's a team that could take down the Bucks. Could. I don't think they will. But I acknowledge the X factor that Kyrie and the Celtics, with Gordon Hayward, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart coming back, represent. That's a team that can go through a wild swing. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Smith today, laying out the two players for you that I believe serve as the difference makers, the swing factors, the X factors in the NBA playoffs. I just gave you Kyrie Irving. Here's the one other name that I believe could swing this playoffs. Let me deal with this first. One of the problems with the NBA, 82-game regular season, is the predictable nature. With the rise of the Golden State Warriors and the super-duper team, where we know who's going to win, and there's a lack of drama in the outcome, it all becomes so predictable, including the first round of the NBA playoffs. I have trouble finding the upset. But again, on Get Up, Damon Jones, former NBA player, he didn't have trouble. This guy, Damon, my man, does not believe in the predictable nature of the NBA playoffs, I guess. Listen to this.
I see Orlando winning this series.
Whoa.
I really do, and I like the way that this team is playing defense. They're shooting the three ball exceptionally well. If Orlando can set their pace and set their tone defensively, and like I said, make the three like they've been doing down the stretch of the regular season, I see them winning in 7 games.
Orlando. The Magic, Damon? Are we the Magic or like the Orlando Arrows? Was that the AAF team name? I don't even know. Like, which Orlando? Orlando, the Magic. The Magic. Aaron Gordon, Jonathan Isaac. That's what, over the Raptors with Kawhi Leonard. No. No, sir. I respectfully disagree. And that's the thing. How many upsets can you truly see in the NBA playoffs? Go through them. I mean, you're not going to take the Clippers over the Warriors, right? I'm not going to take the Spurs over the Nuggets. I think some, including my friend ESPN NBA analyst Ryan Holland, sees that as a potential upset. I'm not even going to take the Jazz over the Rockets, even though that's an interesting matchup. Over in the East, I am not going to believe that the Sixers, the Celtics, the Raptors, or the Bucks lose in the first round. But if I'm looking for one potential upset, if I'm looking for expectations, I'm looking at the Oklahoma City Thunder against the Portland Trailblazers. That's the 3-seed Portland Trailblazers against the 6-seed Oklahoma City Thunder. That is Vegas and BPI, ESPN's BPI, predicting the Blazers over the Thunder. And I believe there's a guy who can swing those expectations. My other X factor in these NBA playoffs, Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook has to deliver in the playoffs. Russell Westbrook has to exceed what Vegas thinks, what BPI thinks, what seeding has his team going against 6 versus 3. We expect it. at some point the Thunder have to win a first-round playoff series without Kevin Durant. Russell Westbrook can swing that series. Russell Westbrook can upset expectations. And I think he has to. I don't think we can continue to talk about triple-doubles. I don't think we can continue to talk about 20-20-20 if it doesn't manifest in wins in the playoffs. Is this winnable? Honestly, forget Vegas. Forget BPI. Don't you think so? I mean, don't you think your own personal expectations, Russell Westbrook and Paul George, Adams, you don't think that team can beat the Blazers? That's a winnable series. No disrespect to Damian Lillard. No disrespect to CJ McCollum. That's a winnable series. And Westbrook can do it, I believe. And he must. He must be the swing factor. He must be the one series in the NBA playoffs where you have a legit upset happening. And it has to happen on the back of Russell Westbrook. And if it doesn't, it'll begin to be that final nail in the coffin of his reputation as a stat player, but not a playoff winner. You know, there's one other guy that's been said of. That's been James Harden. Is that fair? He's in the West. He's going up against the behemoth that is the Golden State Warriors. Is that fair? What does James Harden have to do to meet our expectations? What does James Harden have to do to live up to what we need to see from him the way we need to see a playoff series win from Russell Westbrook? I'll answer that. What? First round? Second round? Western Conference Finals? NBA Finals? What do we need to see from James Harden? You can join that 888-729-3776. Let's get into that. And the horrendous drama in Pittsburgh. Have you ever seen a team with this much drama? Have you ever seen a team with this much dysfunction? I'll tell you what. I'm going to bring in a guy who gives you one of the name of a team that could soon turn into the Steelers if they're not careful. That team name could surprise some fans in the upper Midwest. It's Will Cain on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. If you haven't tried the incredible high-quality meat from ButcherBox, you're going to be blown away. ButcherBox delivers healthy, 100% grass-fed and grass-finished beef, free-range organic chicken, and heritage breed pork right to your door. With free shipping, you can get a month's worth of the best-tasting meat from ButcherBox for less than $6 a meal. ButcherBox is offering Stephen A's listeners the ultimate breakfast bundle, 2 packs of the best-tasting bacon you've ever had, and 2 pounds of their custom breakfast sausage, plus $20 off your first box when you sign up at butcherbox.com/Stephen A. That's butcherbox.com/Stephen A. Which team could soon turn into the Steelers drama? Next on the Stephen A. Smith Show.
The Stephen A. Smith Show is being brought to you by Barbasol. Hey, sports fans. Barbasol is offering you a chance to score big when you join the Barbasol Shave Club. Grab your premium starter kit for
To assume at this point that Ben Roethlisberger is somehow blameless in the overall drama in Pittsburgh, set aside the racist accusations. I can't address that, but I can address the overall dysfunction, locker room drama, players going at each other. I can't address that, and Ben Roethlisberger is clearly a part of all of that. He is clearly, as a supposed leader on that football team, someone who hasn't brought that team together, who at least some players in that locker room don't see as a leader they want to follow. Ben Roethlisberger is clearly somebody who shoulders some of the blame of the dysfunction and drama in Pittsburgh. You know who else is? Number 2, Mike Tomlin. Mike Tomlin is an extremely likable coach. It seems like many players who played for him want to. He's a player's coach. But the buck has to stop somewhere. And the head coach is a pretty good place to look. When you have this much going on around you, when you have this much absolute dysfunction, don't you start to look at leadership at some point? Don't you start to look at the person who's supposed to be in charge and bring these guys all together? Don't you at some point have to stop the buck at the head coach? Mike Tomlin is in no small part someone that shoulders blame for this drama and dysfunction in Pittsburgh. But the primary mover, the person that first hit their brakes on the freeway, the person that set all of this in motion, the one who's primarily to blame is Antonio Brown. He is the one walking away. Like in Stella Got Her Groove Back, with like a mat she's thrown over her shoulder into an absolute engulfed in flames wreckage behind him. He is the one smiling as he walks away, having caused or exposed most of this dysfunction.
Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pins Oil Performance Line. And you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Lady, and on ESPN News, Will Cain sitting in for Stephen A. today. If you missed any of my opening segment where I laid out for you the hope and false hope of Tigers opening day at the Masters, go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith podcast, brought to you by the Capital One Savor Card. Earn 4% cash back on dining and entertainment, 2% at grocery stores, and 1% on all other purchases. What's in your wallet? All right, so let's move over. Let's talk about the NFL. Let's talk about one of the biggest dysfunctional messes I have seen in modern football memory. Not in my lifetime can I remember a team as messed up as the Pittsburgh Steelers. And to talk about that, let's bring in our friend, Super Bowl champion, ESPN NFL insider, Tedy Bruschi, who's on the Shell Pins Oil Performance Line. What's up, Teddy?
Well, I'm doing good. And yes, you talk about dysfunction. We're going to talk about the Pittsburgh Steelers because there's a lot going on there.
Man, seriously, I can't remember anything this big of a mess, Teddy. I mean, I'm a fan of the Dallas Cowboys. I lived through the 90s. I don't even know what comes close. I don't know what rivals this, where I've got current players, I've got former players, I've got everybody. It's like a battle royale in WWE. Yeah. I mean, it's coming in from every angle here. Chairs are being swung. I don't even know whose side is what side now. What's going on here, man? How do you make sense of it?
Yeah. And with everybody with their own microphone, which is social media, it just adds another layer. So you keep peeling it back and you keep having another perspective. And it goes on and on, all the way through pre-Antonio Brown, how Le'Veon Bell affected the chemistry of the locker room. I mean, he wasn't in terms of a distraction, and that is Antonio Brown right now, but still the reaction of the players, the reaction of the former players on a public forum is surprising to me. I mean, me being a Patriot, I mean, it was just something that Coach Belichick would always warn us about, was social media, even when it was in its infancy about 10 years ago when I was there. So Mike Tomlin I look to, and, I see this as an opportunity. That's what I see, because you can let all this happen in April right now, but to get your team back and under control without a distraction that is Antonio Brown right now, and moving forward with the leaders that you have along that offensive line and Ben Roethlisberger, we're going to see how good of a coach he is, because that's one of the main responsibilities of the head coach, in my opinion, is to get everyone on the same message. So we'll see if Tomlin can do that.
Teddy, so I want to run this by you. I feel like I'm almost of two minds here. I argued this morning on First Take, filling in for Stephen A. as well. Like, I believe in leadership. Obviously, you do as well. You played for one of the greatest leaders, obviously one of the best coaches of all time in Bill Belichick. And so I agree, and I believe in the idea that the buck has to stop somewhere. You can't keep passing it, and leadership is where the final desk sits that you pass the buck to. So Mike Tomlin has to be part of the blame here and part of the solution. And if you're part of the solution, that means you had to, at some point, allowed it to exist. You were part of the problem. What I'm getting at is I think Mike Tomlin had to have at least allowed a culture to develop where this could happen, Teddy. But here's the other thing. I'm telling you, I'm of two minds here. How do you do this? Like, how do you get a bunch of people to stay off social media? Ultimately, it's like everybody's individual judgment, right? Each human being has to sit down and go, is this a smart idea or is this really dumb? And too many guys with the Steelers have decided something that was incredibly dumb was smart to do. And I don't know what Mike Tomlin can do to fix that.
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, especially like you're talking about social media and talking about how easy it is for players to get their voices and opinions out there. A big thing that we had was speak for yourself. You want to talk about social media, you talk about your situation, you talk about your job, things like that. But it's just so far beyond that now in Pittsburgh that I think Tomlin's got to, get on the same page with a core new group of leaders. I mean, now that, believe me, Antonio Brown, it's coming. You're just seeing the layers peeled back now, how much of a distraction it must have been for so many of them. And then watching a player like that, knowing he was the best offensive player on the football team, and to be able to do this behavior and then still, he's performing. So it's confusing. So that's gone. So Tomlin can reestablish a new culture. It's going to be extremely difficult. If he gets guys like Pouncey and Foster and Roethlisberger on the same page, it's possible, but it's going to be an incredibly tough coaching job to do.
ESPN NFL analyst Tedy Bruschi here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. today. You ready to run, man? You ready to go?
The Boston Marathon. Thanks, buddy. Yeah. Monday I'll be running with 48 other runners of mine from my foundation on Teddy's team. They say it's going to rain. I may need a poncho, but what we say is we survive, we run. We're going to go out there and left foot, right foot, repeat. Left, right, repeat over and over again through a bunch of puddles. It is New England. It is the weather, but very excited about running my third Boston Marathon on Monday, man. It's like my theme has been sort of three rings, 3 medals, and I'm out.
This will be your last one? This is it?
I think so.
Really? 3 marathons, 3 Boston marathons. Have you done more marathons than that?
No, just Boston.
Always Boston.
I've always called it like the Super Bowl of road races. It's just a special, spectacular event that, people come from all over the world to run, tens of thousands of people, and I'll be out there, hopefully, buddy, coming down Boylston Street to finish it off.
Tedy Bruschi only plays in Super Bowls, only runs in Super Bowls. All right, man, I want to ask you something about Aaron Rodgers. I want to talk to you about this piece that came out, first of all, about a week ago in the Bleacher Report, and now it's been followed up several times with Aaron Rodgers refusing to address it, other players, other people out there saying it's unfair. That's what I want to ask you, Tedy. Is this piece in the Bleacher Report has several players on record talking about Aaron Rodgers' personality and his leadership. It is a lot of names we have heard several times criticizing Rodgers. It's Greg Jennings. It's Jermichael Finley. It's Jeff Janis. It's a lot of the same guys. That's fair to point out. Do you think that there is enough smoke here that we need to give credence to question Aaron Rodgers' leadership and how far that can ultimately take the Packers? Or everybody has critics, everybody has personality critics, and nobody's universally liked. This is unfair to Rodgers. Which way is this for you?
Well, I think there's credibility to it. You got former teammates willing to put their names on it, and it's obvious out there at times in the past of his reaction and his body language and the eye rolls and the way him and McCarthy were at each other. You could tell there was something going on there. And I mean, watching Aaron Rodgers, he does have a little bit of arrogance to him. So you have to consider all of that. But this is what you also got to consider. This right here is got Pittsburgh Steelers written all over it. I mean, it can just morph into something else if they let it. So LaFleur, I am using the Pittsburgh Steelers situation as an example. I mean, fellas, look, it's a year later. And here they are. This is what happened 12 months ago. This is what was said 6 months ago. And here we are still in April. Look what's happening here, fellas. We're being attacked from the outside by this report. Okay, we've counterpunched a little bit with the gloves on, and we've defended Aaron. Now drop the gloves. It's over. We got to move forward. This is going to be a sign of what type of coach LaFleur is now, if he can just squash this quickly, because there is validity with the former Packers saying it, but moving on is tough to do, and letting your players let go and move on is going to be tough for him to establish as a head coach. We'll see how he does.
Whoa, this is the Pittsburgh Steelers all over, or can be, or can morph into that.
It can be possible if every time they're asked, they go ahead and give another response. Every time they see something on social media, they go ahead and comment themselves. They can do that and let this fester and let this get bigger and bigger out there in the public and in the media, or They can squash it. I saw Devontae Adams and how he commented. He defended his quarterback. I think Aaron's defended himself enough. It's time to move on and just say, I've commented on that. We're on to the offseason program, mini camps, anything about 2019 season. That's how they got to squash it.
You know, one of the things you said there that I want to follow up on is you said there's obviously validity, or there appears to be some validity. And this could be the Pittsburgh Steelers all over again. So I could draw that logic, Teddy, and go backwards with it too. There can be some validity to the criticism of Ben Roethlisberger. There can be some validity to the criticism, obviously, to Antonio Brown. But the point at some point for your franchise and for your team, this is what I'm hearing from you, is stop. Who cares if it's right or wrong? You have a goal now that you guys are going to have to put it all behind you to move forward to.
Yeah, you know, you hear the players say things like, when it's during the season about football, you know, we can't worry about, if I'm a Packers player, we can't worry about the Bears or what the Vikings are doing. We only can control what we can control. Well, that's on the field football performance and wins and losses, but it's the same off the field about taking care of distractions. You can't control other people on how they feel and on their opinions and how they express them. It's only about your opinion and your attitude and leadership in the locker room. Focus on that and moving on. So it does relate, but it's just hard to let it go when someone's coming at you and it's sort of gossip-like.
All right, ESPN NFL analyst Tedy Bruschi here on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Appreciate you, Teddy. Have fun this weekend on Monday. Go run fast.
Thanks, buddy. All right, buddy. I'll finish.
All right, see you, man. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Progressive's Home Quote Explorer gives you multiple quote options so you can pick what's right for you. See for yourself at Progressive.com. I talked about Russell Westbrook. I talked about Kyrie Irving, but what about James Harden? How much pressure? What are the expectations for what Harden and the Rockets have to do? That's coming up on the Stephen A. Smith Show. Gentlemen, stop lounging around. Be active. Take your girl out. Go to a game or concert. Get tickets or something. The NBA playoffs begin this weekend. The time is now to jump on those tickets. For all your ticket needs, look no further than Vivid Seats, the official ticket partner of ESPN. Go to vividseats.com and enter promo code ESPN to get 10% off your first order. Get out. Go have an experience, fellas. Get to the game and use Vivid Seats. Don't buy just any seat. Get a Vivid Seat. What do we need to see from James Harden? It's Will Cain on the Stephen A. Smith Show. I believe in a certain set of rules, principles of how a man should go about life. And I don't think there's a level of stardom or celebrity that exempts you from those rules, or the criticism that will follow if you don't, that will rightfully follow if you don't follow them. I don't think celebrity forgives everything. And sometimes when I talk to former players, I feel like, what is against the rules for you? Like, if Magic is special, what can he not do then?
Here's what I saw that maybe allows me to be more forgiving, and what's outside of the norm. And I want to see if you agree with this. I saw humility, I saw transparency, and I saw emotion. I didn't think that anything he said was staged. It was fake. As a matter of fact, it should have been a little staged because it was very likely too candid. To be honest, it was too candid for a lot of people, and that's what Magic Johnson gave you. Ideally, you'd love to see him ride it out and carry this thing through. But I believe there's so many things going on wrong behind the scenes with the Lakers organization in which he couldn't put his hands on or fingers on to help. And we talked about the roles being mistaken, but I just think, Will, that's
everybody keeps talking about that. That is it. Backstabbing.
Hold on, but
who you talk? Is it Rob Pelinka versus Magic Johnson? Is that what we're talking about?
If I have to point at somebody, you give me the last dollar in my wallet, I'm gonna point at Rob Pelinka. Because those two had been joined at the hip until that day. And my understanding is that there's something that came across Magic Johnson's desk or in his face or made him known that he had been being backstabbed. Do I have proof, evidence? I'm not all in on that, but I'm telling you, that's the understanding. And I can see, and when you think about Magic Johnson being the president of the Lakers, we almost agree he could have done that job for free. He didn't need the money.
Right.
He didn't need it. So for him, principle, family, knowing I have somebody have my back meant the world to Magic.
But then he in turn didn't do those things. He didn't act principled. He didn't have Jeannie Buss's back. He didn't tell her face to face.
A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Bank. Will Cain sitting in for Stephen A. today here on ESPN Radio. Tiger Woods is about to tee off at the Masters. He began the day 4 strokes back of the leaders, and as most of the field is approaching or on the back nine, he still sits 4 strokes back of the leaders. He'll have a chance this afternoon as he tees off with Ricky Fowler and John Rahm to catch up. He has an opportunity. We'll see if Tiger can capitalize. Couple quick golf notes before I get back to something Tedy Bruschi said. We just had Tedy Bruschi here on the Stephen A. Smith Show, and he said something fascinating about both the Steelers and the Packers. I want to revisit for a second. But a couple quick golf notes from the Masters. Zach Johnson teed off just a few moments ago, or at least that's what it looked like he did. But it was apparently a practice swing that made contact with the ball. The ball flew about at a 90-degree angle into the tee box marker, a small piece of log or stick on the tee box marker, ricocheted off it and just bounced about 2 feet forward in the tee box. And then Zach picked his ball up. It didn't count. And that sent many of us, including Pat, back in Bristol doing some research about what counts and what doesn't count. It's fascinating. First of all, if you whiff, if you take a stroke and you make no contact whatsoever, doesn't count. That stroke doesn't count towards your score, obviously, right? But if you take a practice swing and make contact with the ball the way Zach Johnson did, and it just kind of bounces around, that doesn't count either. So making contact with the ball, even though it's a practice swing, doesn't count. However, if you whiff and the ball blows off the tee, you don't make contact, but the ball falls off the tee, that one counts. That one's going for your score. So make contact on a practice swing, doesn't count. Don't make contact on a whiff swing, but the ball moves, does count. Go figure. Now you can apply those rules to your buddies when they're 7 beers deep this weekend playing some golf. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Smith. The NBA playoffs are on ESPN Radio. Tune in tomorrow night as Steph Curry and the Warriors host the Clippers, presented by Indeed. Coverage begins at 7:30 p.m. Eastern on most ESPN radio stations. Talking to Tedy Bruschi about how hard it is for Mike Tomlin to get control of that locker room, to keep guys from making statements about their teammates or former teammates, to help them, honestly, exercise good judgment. And Tedy Bruschi mentioned the Green Bay Packers. If they're not careful, if Matt LaFleur, new first-time head coach, isn't careful, could end up in the same boat as the Steelers. And it got me thinking, culture is so hard to define. How do you set up good culture? I mean, there's no rules, really. Just how do you get everybody on the same page, acting the same way, acting right? It's like the military, man. Look, there's 53 men in football. You got to get them all on the same page. And the way you do it, people don't want to hear it, but it's with top-down authority. That's how culture is created, from guys like Bill Belichick, requiring it, cutting you if you don't live up to it. That's what culture is. I will say, I do believe football's like the military, partially because of their numbers, but the NBA is beginning to have these problems more and more. The NBA is beginning to have problems on social media, personalities, and culture is going to become increasingly important in the NBA to get all these men together working towards a common goal, because that's what it's about. How do you get a bunch of disparate personalities and a bunch of people working towards a common goal? Will Cain in for Stephen A. Smith. Let's ask and answer this question. Could the Lakers seriously consider trading LeBron? Next on the Stephen A. Smith Show.
Coast to coast. The Stephen A. Smith Show starts right now.
There's a lot of messes in professional sports right now. There's a lot of soap operas, a lot of dramas. From Pittsburgh to Green Bay.
On ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
Fortunes of, I don't know, half a dozen franchises in the NBA, including the future of perhaps our NBA MVP, Giannis Antetokounmpo. It's Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Smith today on the Stephen A. Smith Show, brought to you by Pennzoil Synthetics, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. I'm making the case for you today that Kevin Durant is the X factor for the entire dang league. Kyrie Irving might be the X factor in the Eastern Conference playoffs. Russell Westbrook could be the X factor in the Western Conference playoffs. But KD, the whole shebang. The whole damn thing. If Kevin Durant decides to leave the Golden State Warriors, I want you to think about the ripple effect across the league. Number one, and this impacts every team. No longer do you need 3-4 superstars to win an NBA title. The most important and first thing that happens is that he lowers the bar for what it takes to win. And thank you for that, because we're enough with the predictability, enough with the lack of drama, enough with the certainty that the Golden State Warriors are going to win. They are. Fool's errand, fool's gold to go bet on something else. But this is it, man. This is what we need. Look, you realize everything is drama, right? Everything that we do, everything that we watch, everything we're entertained by. It's drama. Scripted television shows, midday talk shows on ABC or CBS, reality shows. It's all drama. That's what it is. Even comedy, drama. It's laughing your way through the conflict. Sports, it's just drama too. So what have the Golden State Warriors robbed us of? They robbed us of the drama. The exact reason we tune in. I mean, you could give me what you're here for the incredible performances. I guess there's a few of you out there that from time to time just like to tune into watching something, cool unfold in front of your eyes. And I get that, but if you're into that, go ahead and watch some YouTube compilation videos. No, man, we watch because we don't know what's going to happen next. We watch for the drama, the tension, the unpredictability, the conflict, and that's what the Golden State Warriors have taken away from us. We know what's going to happen. We know the end of the story. There's no drama. So the first and most important thing that KD leaving the Warriors does is restore the unpredictability, restore the drama, and it restores the league to needing just 2 stars or 2 and change to win an NBA title. And that affects every team. Now you no longer need 3, 4. Secondarily, he can make the New York Knicks relevant again. Secondarily, he can make one of the most storied or biggest brands in sports somebody we care about again. Third, he could pull Kyrie away from the Boston Celtics and join him in New York. And now you've affected the Celtics away as well. And if that happens, then Anthony Davis isn't a realistic trade target for the Boston Celtics, and that's affected New Orleans. And then Anthony Davis goes who knows where, perhaps back to the Lakers, and that affects New Orleans and the Lakers. The ripple effects of KD are numerous, but here is one somewhere down the line that you have to consider. If it's true that you no longer have to have 3, 4 stars, well, why does Giannis have to leave Milwaukee? You can be a star in any market. You can be a star in Oklahoma City. You can be a star wherever you want. You can be a star in Milwaukee. And if you no longer have to say to yourself, God, how am I ever going to win a title if I don't join up with a banana boat crew of superstars? If you don't have to have that thought, if you don't have to do that anymore, Giannis can stay right there in Milwaukee. He can build his own thing. KD leaving the Warriors makes it more likely that Giannis can stay with the Bucks. Giannis can stay with the Bucks, build his own thing, become a title contender without having to go join some super team across the league to contend. KD is the X factor. He is the swing. He changes the outcome for everybody, including the guy who should win MVP this year, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance, making it easy to bundle your home and car insurance. Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Let's get to James Harden and Tiger, who's now teed off at the Masters in just a moment. But let's hit your calls. First, let's go to Jay in Detroit. What's up, Jay?
Y'all had y'all website on me, so I was trying.
Jay, who you talking to? You're not talking to me. Jay, last chance. Come in, Jay. You're on the Stephen A. Smith Show.
Man,
What's
my
up?
Bad. You was on talking to somebody for so long, so yeah, I was calling about the thing with Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah, all right. Ben Roethlisberger, the Steelers drama, Ben's role in the drama.
Yeah, but you got to really look at it. Now, really deep. This is how it is. The stuff that he did in 2009 and 2010 when he raped those girls, that's real. That wouldn't have a black quarterback couldn't have got past that. He would not be in the NFL.
All right, Jay, let's go one at a time, all right? We'll have a conversation. We'll see if we can walk our way through this. You can't say that Ben did those things because he hasn't been convicted of those things. He was accused of those things, and until further notice, I don't care if you're a white quarterback or a black quarterback. I don't care if you play quarterback at all. I don't care if you play running back. I don't care if you play defensive end. I don't care if your name's Greg Hardy or Ben Roethlisberger. An accusation is not a conviction. I've been consistent on the Will Cain Show every moment in every one of these instances. So I can't let you come in here and just say, when he did X, Y, Z. Are you consistent with that, Jay? Do you do that when it's everybody else, regardless of the race of the quarterback or the position or the player? Do you go around using accusations as convictions? Do you know Ben Roethlisberger did that?
Wait a minute. You do one in 2009 and you settle out of court. You settle out of court. I read it online. And then he did one in 2010.
If he was convicted of these things, Jay, he wouldn't be a quarterback. So you can't say he did these things. You can't say that about anybody that's not convicted. Do you know? Do you have firsthand knowledge of this?
Well, Kobe Bryant wasn't convicted of the situation with that girl, and they found 3 different semens in her, and they still stole him for it. They was trying to get him, exile him out of Hollywood.
You think Kobe has paid a price for that at a higher rate than Ben has paid a price for his accusations? And by the way, I don't accept your other contention, Jay, that a black quarterback wouldn't survive this. That a black quarterback wouldn't get a second chance. Should we address, Jameis Winston? Jameis Winston has basically been accused of, if not quite to the same scale, in the same category of Ben Roethlisberger, and before that, before that in college to the same level. And Jameis Winston, he's with us. He's in the league. He survived, yes.
And he wouldn't be in the league. He basically going to be out of the league in the next 2-3 years.
What does that have to do with, Jay? His play, right? That's about his play.
My thing of it is, how can you respect a man? You got a daughter, you got a son. As a black man, respect this guy that you know in your heart that this man did do this, and he got away with it. And if the same thing was on your end, you would not get away with it. You would not get away. Wait a minute, Will. Listen to
Jay, when you say on your end, real quick, Jay, just for clarification.
I'm not.
No, I just want to know what you're talking about. When you say on your end, are you speaking for Antonio Brown there? Is that what you're, like, when you say?
Antonio Brown, if Antonio Brown was in that situation, right, Antonio Brown would not be in the league. I don't care. The same thing happened with Ray Rice in the domestic violence thing. One situation, and you get him out of the league. Everybody have a bad season. Everybody don't have great seasons every year. Come on, man.
All right, Jay. Listen, man, I'm going to address everything you said, okay? I promise. I appreciate the call. I don't know if you know me, Jay. I don't know if you listen to the Will Cain Show in addition to the Stephen A. Smith Show, but I'm game for the discussion. I don't care how difficult or how contentious it is. I don't care how sensitive the topic it is. I'm game. Your call right here, Jay, said Lakers talk. I get a call screen that says, this is what their name is, this is where they're calling from, this is what they want to talk. It said Jay, Detroit, Lakers. But I'm game. Let's play. Let's do it. I'm ready, off the cuff. Let me start with this. A couple weeks ago, friend of mine, producer on my show, Nuno, and friend of mine, former co-host Ryan Russillo, they've made this point to me several times. Will, hey man, is it never racial? Because you often on the side of, no, it's not about race, right? And I said, well, a couple points. Number one, every time we talk about it, it's because it's a point of contention, meaning it's a close call. The obvious ones, nobody ever talks about that. The obvious ones don't make TV, and even when they do, and I have addressed several obvious ones, nobody makes noise about it. But when they do, it's a close call. I believe race plays a role in the way many things are perceived. I believe people get different treatment in this world and in sports due to their race. But as I go through each individual instance, I need direct evidence. I need you to make a case. And Jay, anybody else listening? You got to make a much, much better case than the one you just made with Ben Roethlisberger and all the other instances you brought up. I'll walk through those when we come back in just a moment. And I get back to basketball, where I want to talk about what exactly do we need to see from James Harden. I take on your arguments about Roethlisberger, Antonio Brown, and the role races played, and I talk about James Harden. Next, Will Cain in for Stephen A. Smith on ESPN Radio.
This show and all of ESPN is streaming live on the ESPN app. Now with ESPN Plus, where you get more ESPN. Download the ESPN app today and take ESPN everywhere.
Geico, 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance. Visit geico.com.
I believe in a certain set of rules, principles of how a man should go about life. And I don't think there's a level of stardom or celebrity that exempts you from those rules. Or the criticism that will follow if you don't, that will rightfully follow if you don't follow them. I don't think celebrity forgives everything. And sometimes when I talk to former players, I feel like, what is against the rules for you? Like, if Magic is special, okay, what can he not do then?
Here's what I saw that maybe allows me to be more forgiving, and what's outside of the norm. And I want to see if you agree with this. I saw humility, I saw transparency, and I saw emotion. I didn't think that anything he said was staged. It was fake. As a matter of fact, it should have been a little staged because it was very likely too candid. To be honest, it was too candid for a lot of people, and that's what Magic Johnson gave you. Ideally, you'd love to see him ride it out and carry this thing through. But I believe there's so many things going on wrong behind the scenes with the Lakers organization in which he couldn't put his hands on or fingers on to help. And we talked about the roles being mistaken, but I just think, Will, that's
everybody keeps talking about that. That is it. Backstabbing.
Hold on, but
who you talk? Is it Rob Pelinka versus Magic Johnson? Is that what we're talking about?
If I have to point at somebody, you give me the last dollar in my wallet, I'm gonna point at Rob Pelinka. Because those two had been joined at the hip until that day. And my understanding is that there's something that came across Magic Johnson's desk or in his face or made him known that he had been being backstabbed. Do I have proof, evidence? I'm not all in on that, but I'm telling you, that's the understanding. And I can see, and when you think about Magic Johnson being the president of the Lakers, we almost agree he could have done that job for free. He didn't need the money.
Right.
He didn't need it. So for him, principle, family, knowing I have somebody have my back meant the world to Magic.
But then he in turn didn't do those things. He didn't act principally. He didn't have Jeannie Buss's back. He didn't tell her face to face.
Show on ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Guests on the Stephen A. Smith Show appear via the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and you can always get in touch with the show through the 1-800-Flowers Twitter feed.
I'm going to get to what we need to see from James Harden in just a moment here. It's Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Smith today on the Stephen A. Smith Show on ESPN Radio. And if you missed any of the show today, it's been a good one. I promise. Go check it out on demand in the Stephen A. Smith podcast, brought to you by Capital One Saver Card. Earn 4% cash back on dining and entertainment, 2% at grocery stores, 1% on all other purchases. What's in your wallet? Get to James Harden in just a moment here and a couple of your calls. But I want to address what Jay in Detroit just called in to say, and that is that Ben Roethlisberger is getting away with his leadership role, his attitude, his personality in Pittsburgh, essentially because he's a white quarterback. And if a black quarterback wouldn't get away with it, or for that matter, a black wide receiver in Antonio Brown, how do you expect them to get along? And Jay points out Ben's accusations from years ago, his criminal accusations from years ago. I want to make a couple of points. Number one, I've been consistent on this. You can hear it on the Will Cain Show. You can hear it on First Take. I've been consistent on this. I don't care if you are black or white, quarterback or defensive end. I do not believe accusations should carry the power of conviction. It's a very popular thing to do in media in a way to show your own virtue, that you're so against something that you believe that accusation is in fact a conviction. I don't do that. I don't believe in that. I don't care the race of the accused. I want to look at the evidence of each individual instance, and then we make the judgment. And then when you look at the evidence, you start asking yourself, well, would a black or a white player be treated differently? Jay tried to say if Ben Roethlisberger was black, he'd be out of the league. I think a very easy rebuttal to that one is, what about Jameis Winston? He's been accused of all the same things. Not only is he in the league, he was picked first overall after the accusations. What about Ray Rice? Jay brings up Ray Rice. Ray Rice is a risk-reward analysis. What do you do for a running back that's been years in the league, who became the center of a massive public relations problem for the league? Well, you don't keep him in the league. It's not worth the risk to reap the reward for any given team. There are other players, like Joe Mixon, who are in the league, where the risk-reward was deemed something different. It had nothing to do with race. Ben Roethlisberger is not the best leader. In fact, he's probably one of the worst at the quarterback position in the NFL. I think that's a fair judgment. But I don't think much of what's gone on between Ben and Antonio Brown has to do with race. Race has to do with a lot of things in this country, in sports. But you got to have the evidence to back it up when you make it. I think in this instance, Jay or anybody else that believes race is playing the role, I think your evidence falls short. It's Will Cain filling in for Stephen A. Tune in to the NL East rivalry this Sunday as the Braves host the Mets, presented by Indeed. Coverage of Sunday Night Baseball begins 6 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Radio, the ESPN app, at 7 p.m. on ESPN. You can normally catch me 3 to 6 Eastern on ESPN Radio right after Stephen A. And also on ESPN News, you can catch me on First Take. You can catch me on Twitter at Will Cain or Instagram, Will Cain. Always come join the conversation. Like right now. Let's talk to Mike in West Virginia. What's up, Mike? You're on the Stephen A. Smith Show.
Hey, Will. How's it going? You were talking about KD there a while ago and you know, the ramifications and of him possibly leaving and going somewhere else. Well, what about Boogie Cousins? He just signed a 1-year contract with them. You know, do you think he would stay? Do you think that, you know, he may go somewhere else?
I think Mike the Boogie's probably headed somewhere else. And I think he's a good player. He just doesn't have quite the impact. It's been interesting. Is Boogie a tier B player? Is he a guy the Lakers could look at? One more really quickly. Will in Houston. You want to talk about James Harden? Will, I don't want to get James Harden point in here.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to talk about the perceived failure or success of James Harden, how we're going to judge it.
Yeah, how far do you think he needs to go?
I mean, in my opinion, you really can't say that he has to beat the Warriors because you were just talking about how teams need 3 and 4 All-Stars.
Totally agree, Will. So how far?
I mean, in my opinion, my successor judgment is going to be on, you know, I just can't see him shoot 3 for 20 from the three-point line. He needs to get to the goal, you know, push the offense. He can't just be jacking up threes. Yeah. But I don't think we can say they have to get the win.
I totally agree, Will. Thanks for the call, man. I totally agree. You can't hold him to the Golden State Warriors standard, but you can hold him to this. James Harden and the Rockets better beat the Utah Jazz, right? They better get out of the first round. Otherwise, oh boy. And his performance individually against the Warriors in the second round better be top notch. That's fair expectations for James Harden.